Hi everybody, and welcome to Saturday's edition of Tunes from the Shop with Skip. First off, I'd just like to thank you all for your wonderful comments and compliments about yesterday's programming with the music of Roy Watrous and the bouncing Abigail. That was one of my favorites as well. You know, the hard part a lot of times with these for me is not the actual playing of the tunes, it's getting through the introductions, because some of them kind of get a little bit emotional, and today will be no exception. So, today I'm going to play a piece of music that I recorded on this album. I've spoken quite a few times about the Ancient Mariners Fife and Drum Corps, with whom I've been a member since about 1977. The Mariners were formed in 1959 by the subject of yesterday's music, this gentleman here, Roy Watrous. After a trip to Switzerland in 1970, the Swiss Mariners of Basel were formed by Freddie Bruder and Adi Rick and a few other members of the Basel Fastnacht music community. This year would mark the 50th anniversary of the Swiss Mariners, and there was a very, very large event planned in Basel, a huge concert with what we call the International Mariners, when the original Ancient Mariners and the Swiss Mariners come together as one group. Unfortunately, because of all the coronavirus restrictions, that has been postponed until next year, but it's going to happen. Today's request comes from the Commodore, which is what we call our presidents of our two organizations, being somewhat nautically themed, or the Commode as they are lovingly known. Peter is a phenomenal snare drummer, one of the best I've ever heard, and in two forms of music, in both the Basel Fastnacht style of drumming and the American style of rudimental drumming. I first met Peter when I was teaching a group in Basel called the Wild Bunch, and I was there on the night when he gave a very tearful resignation from the Wild Bunch to fulfill his lifelong wish of joining the Swiss Mariners. Peter had a brother named Kurt, who was absolutely one of the best players I've ever heard in my life. I've known, and in one way or another taught, probably 95% of the people in Switzerland who play the American fife, and Kurt, any way you slice it, was absolutely in my top three of all times of American style fife players here in Switzerland. He suddenly and very sadly passed away just over a year ago, a loss that's still felt in many quarters. If you look on the back of this album here, right up here you see this little oar sticking up with some little shiny bits on it. It's being held by an old friend, George Beckworth. That's the oar. When you join the Ancient Mariners, you're what we call a polywog for a year, and at the end of that year you're initiated into the full organization, and when you pass away your name is added to the oar. The Mariners, especially the Ancient Mariners in America, do a lot of parades. We call it hitting the street, and since you're a member for life, the tradition was formed of adding your name to the oar, which is unfortunately where Kurt's name is now. But Peter asked me if I would play a piece from this album, to be exact, the fife solo from this album. So let me tell you a little bit about it. It is actually an amalgam of a couple of different pieces. In the same time that I joined the Ancient Mariners, there was a large group of people who came out of the United States Army's Presidential Honor Guard, the Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps. One of those was a guy, John Benoit, who you've also heard me mention several times. We had at that time, I should say John Chalia had at that time, a small group called the American Fife Ensemble, which was basically himself, a fantastic fifer by the name of Bill Gallagher, and a third tremendous fife player by the name of Craig Stopka. Then later in '77 or so, when we all started playing together as a group, John Benoit and I also came into the American Fife Ensemble. John knows a lot of music, John Benoit now, knows a lot of music from a lot of different sources, and he put together a medley that was called, that he called Get Off Your Ass, that John Chalya then composed some tremendous duet, trio, and quartet harmonies to. We kicked that piece around for a few years. I'm not sure we ever publicly performed it, but we played a lot of the individual or two or three sets of 2 or 3 pieces from the medley. In 1980, the idea for this album started to be discussed, and in 1981, the album was recorded. And we put together a fife solo for the recording. The players were myself on first, John Chalya on fourth, and Craig Stopka and Alan Reed on second and third. I'm not quite sure which guy played which, or they jumped back and forth a little. It was pretty amazing. Alan was also a member of the Old Guard at that time, and we needed somebody who could handle the part. We knew Alan was a phenomenal player. We called him, he jumped in a car, drove up from Washington, D.C. to Connecticut. We put the music in front of him, and I think about 24 or so hours later, we were in the recording studio recording the piece. So, well done, Alan. We did not want to use the Get Off Your Ass piece for some reason, but we used that as the framework for what was later called A Sea of Ale and the Dock Street Mermaid, which was my name for the piece. I came up with that name. John and I did a lot of street busking all around in the United States for years, and one of the places we used to play was in Charleston, South Carolina at the Piccolo Spoleto Music Festival. We stayed in a place called the Dock Street Hotel. It was a very, very famous hotel in Charleston, South Carolina. You can look it up. It's fascinating. There were all kinds of ghosts, it's an amazing place. It's a great place. And as John and I were leaving the hotel one morning to go hit the street ourselves and try to make some money, I came up with a couple of names. I thought A Sea of Ale would be great. The Ancient Mariners are very famous for their consumption of Ballantine ale. And mermaids, of course, being a popular nautical theme. And we were in the Dock Street Hotel. So that's how the name came about. I said, well, I think A Sea of Ale is cool, but I also like Dock Street Mermaid. And I think Chalya said, well, I'm using both. So the piece became A Sea of Ale and the Dock Street Mermaid. Excuse me, still a lot of pollen in the air here. Also, one thing the American Fife Ensemble did is we were hired at one point to come play at a Renaissance festival in Rhode Island. And the organizers sent us a bunch of Renaissance music, medieval music. We had no idea about any of this stuff. So we learned a bunch of these tunes. John arranged them, harmonized them all. And for years after that, we still continued to use individual pieces from this music that we had learned for this event in Rhode Island. So the pieces in this particular stand piece, it starts out with one of these medieval pieces called The Horse's Brawl, or we always call it The Horse's Branzel, from the way it's spelled. Then we break into a little bit of Get Off Your Ass. The next tune is one that I'm pretty sure came into the American Fife Ensemble from a man named Ed Jasinki, who played with the New York Regimentals and then also played for a while with the Ancient Mariners. It's a tune called The Balkan Reel. After that is a tune, a traditional Irish tune called The Brink of the White Rocks, a very lovely slow tune. After that, a very famous traditional Irish tune called The Fermoy Lassies. A very well-known fiddle tune, popular in America, called Smash the Windows, a jig. After that, a little bridge that John Chalya wrote and cleverly called Interofluvia, and finishing up with a tune that at the time we did not know the name of. John went to school in Lindenwood College outside of St. Louis, Missouri. And these two names have to do with his years there. We call the tune The Pleasures of Irwin and Lindenwood Ladies. Lindenwood was the college he went to, and Irwin was Irwin Hall, which was the woman's dormitory at Lindenwood. So there's everything you need to know about the tune, except for how it goes. I'm going to play this today on the fife again. It was fun to play the fife yesterday. I have a little teeny tiny bit of fife chops remaining, so I better record this before they disappear. In tribute, I'm wearing the shirt of the Ancient Mariners today. Here we go. Or something like that. Kind of butchered the Balkan reel a little bit, but it's a while since I played it. If you'd like to hear that full arrangement with harmonies played live by an ensemble from the Ancient Mariners, I think somewhere on my the timeline, whatever it's called, if you scroll down far enough, you'll find a video of a bunch of guys kind of dressed like sailors standing on a stage. That is myself with Mark Bernier, Greg Bacon, Joe Mon, I think Paul Joseph, and Scott Redfield, I believe. And you can hear the full arrangement from a concert we did in Basel some years ago. So there you go. Sea of Ale and the Dock Street Mermaid. You know the rest. Stay smart, stay smart, stay smart. Stay safe, stay healthy. See you tomorrow for our easy peasy Sunday. Cheers.